more out of life. Go out to a movie.
There's something inside of Michael.
Never seen anything like it before.
Something that's been waiting, watching, and growing.
Michael?
Something evil.
I know you're in here.
And whatever it is ready to be released.
I came back for them. All of them.
And now no one is safe. You have been warned. You are dared to remain calm during the horrifying final 30 minutes of The Beast Within. Even you may not survive. You have been warned.
I mean, you've done a lot of documentaries. In fact, that's where I personally first came to know your name, through Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? Seeing that about 20 times in 1 month on HBO back in the 1970s.
Wow.
The first documentary I actually enjoyed as just a film and not just as a lesson, because it was entertaining with the various clips from various films and newsreels. A lot of other documentaries you've done, Swastika, German Sons, some of them have been a little controversial. So with the documentaries on one side, some of them were entertaining films like A Breed Apart on the other side, and even something like A Breed Apart has a little bit of a environmental message going on there. Is that conscious? Do you do that on purpose, or do you just find a good story and say, I'm going to run with this, and you can't help but Philippe to get mixed up in it, or?
Well, starting with the documentaries, Swastika was very controversial because, well, I didn't think it was controversial when I was making it, because I believed that everyone knew that Hitler was the worst thing that had ever happened in 20th century history. I didn't know there was anyone who would think otherwise. So when I found Eva Braun's home movies, which showed Hitler in private, I thought, well, this is amazing. You see this guy, so there's that famous phrase, the banality of evil. And I thought, this really shows it. This guy, he's walking around playing with dogs, playing with children, talking about having afternoon tea, and that's just amazing. While this Holocaust is being planned or going on, that it just shows how the evil guys just look normal. And if you don't know that, you're not going to see the next one coming. Anyway, when the film was released, some people were outraged that we were showing Hitler as a normal guy, which of course was the whole point of the movie. So that was accidental controversy. Brother Can You Spare a Dime, for want of a better word, is kind of a straight film, except that it was, which you just pointed out, was really a story. It was a feature film with no narration. That was controversial, that I didn't put narration on. Again, that was the whole point, was to, because I believe narration can take you out of a movie instead of putting you into the movie, especially with compilation stuff. So I was trying to engage the viewer, suck you in. We got the rights to 9 James Cagney movies and recut them to make him one character, a new character. By the way, he was upset when he saw it, and except when the reviews started coming out saying how great it was, he started liking the film. But initially he was upset that he hadn't been paid again for the 9 films being cut together. But anyway, he ended up liking it. A Breed Apart, I was very aware of the environment issue when I made it, which, by the way, then was an early, there was hardly anything about the environment at that time. But being someone who grew up in the 60s, child of the 60s, we were very aware of these issues then, and a lot of other issues. But the environment was something, even in late 60s, mid to late 60s, that we started looking at it as young people. And so Breed Apart is a very, what's the word, it's very, it's a light, it's environment light, but it is about the environment and saving species.
Do you think that has anything to do with you two still being friends after all these years? Having sort of a background of the arts?
Birds of a feather.
Right.
Probably does. I mean, we're like-minded in a lot of ways, or should I say, we're twisted in a lot of ways.
And there are times where, to me, I know this is a skewed perception, it's not really accurate, but there are times where LA comes to seem to me like a cultural desert, and Philippe is like an oasis in that desert, and so is Steve. And so it's a pleasure to be able to talk with them, and because of those shared backgrounds. Yeah.
Now, we had mentioned, or just discovered earlier, that this actually is the first time that all three of you have been together in the same place.
About 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years since the filming of The Beast Within.
Yeah,
And,
since 1981.
Yeah.
And you can't tell that any of us have aged an hour.
Particularly me.
Particularly.
I think I've aged
I'd say
particularly
so.
well.
Yes.
I think you're as
No, it's
suave and debonair as ever.
Thank you. Flattery really works with me.
Thank you. I knew that.
But 30 years. It's
You can
amazing.
pay us later.
Okay. Will you take a check?
Plastic.
Okay. 30 years, amazing.
It is.
And we're in Mississippi of all places. I mean, who would meet in Mississippi?
Mr. Sippy.
You've got to say that I never heard it until today. What the sheriff said.
Oh yeah, the sheriff who was supervising our movie. He said, "Felipe, we have some of the finest minds of the 17th century right here." I always like that.
Yep.
Well, I was there on set as a critic to watch the filming of the movie. And I think the reason the film holds up today is because it was done straight. It was done not comedically, but with a serious take on the sensitivity of a troubled teenager. And Paul was wonderful as the sensitive kid who's terrified because he doesn't know exactly what's happening to him. You've got a serious director like Philippe at the helm. You've got some of the best character actors in Hollywood populating the cast.
Basically,
So-
Sam Peckinpah's whole stock company,
Yeah, yeah.
which Philippe got.
So it holds up because it was done straight, and the acting is marvelous, and Paul in particular carries the picture as a troubled teenager, just not knowing what's happening to him or why. And so there's a sense of tragedy about the story.
I think Paul's acting was key in the whole thing, you know, and
Thank you.
I met a lot of young actors for the role, and it was just, there was no question after I met Paul that I wanted him to do it.
Now, Steve, by the end of your first day meeting Paul, you discovered
A
that
lot
he-
in common.
that he
Yeah,
actually-
we started talking during dinner, and we discovered that we were both lifelong film buffs, and particularly in the area of motion picture music, which has been my major passion through much of my life. And we started talking about composers like Miklos Rozsa and Bernard Herrmann, Dmitri Tiomkin, and we had just a wonderful conversation that went on for several days,
Yeah.
the entire time that I was there. And the cutest thing, not really knowing much about Paul's background, is that one night after dinner he said, "Come on, walk me back to the motel, to my room," and we were all staying at the same motel. And so I followed Paul into his room. He turned on the lights, and I remember he picked up the phone and he said, "Give me a minute, I need to call my mom." So, all right, so I'm sitting there and listening to the conversation, and Paul's on the phone saying, "Yeah, Mom, I think I did okay on the set today. We did this, we did that." And my hands are in my pockets, and he gets off the phone and he turns to me and he says, "My mom likes to know how I did on set each day. She's in the business." And being somewhat ignorant at this point as to Paul's background, I said, "Your mom? Who's your mom?" And he said, "Eleanor Parker." And I thought, oh my God, Eleanor Parker is your mother? A great lady of cinema and stage. But Paul and I had so many things in common, and we maintained a correspondence.
For years.
Yeah, for years. And we just really became reunited about 3 years ago when I came out west again, after being away for some 30 years.
And every year we have a lunch at
Yeah.
Dolores's,
Yeah.
which now no longer exists.
Yeah, we have
So
a
we're going to have to
schmooze
find a
fest.
new hangout.
We will. Yeah, we have like a 3.5 hour lunch every year when I come out, just talking about old times
Oh,
and
yeah.
talking about films and film music. And
Speaking of
also-
film music, I have to say the Beast Within, for me, led to sort of a dream come true with being able to attend the scoring session for the film by the late, great Les Baxter, who is also the godfather, he is called, of a genre called exotica, which is basically the soundtrack of the whole tiki movement, tiki subculture. And other people then picked up on it from there, like Martin Denny and so forth, Arthur Lyman. But really, the genre was created by Les Baxter, who wrote the most famous song of that genre as well, "Quiet Village." And he, of course, did the marvelous scores for all of the, not all, but most of the Edgar
Roger
Allan Poe,
Corman.
Roger Corman
right,
Poe
the
films.
Roger Corman Poe films.
And I'm
have
a
been
big
surprised.
Poe fan and scholar. I wrote the one-man play, Edgar Allan Poe, Once Upon a Midnight, which John Aston did for about 10 years all over the world. And so to meet Les Baxter and get to see him score this film over a 2-day period was a dream come true. And he was like Santa Claus, just the sweetest guy, and funny, and oh my God, I don't know where these photographs are, but I had photos I took throughout the scoring session, and he's clowning around, he's wearing headphones the wrong way, and mugging for the camera, and just great stuff, and he and I stayed in touch for a period of time until his death, and just a great guy, and
And
Yeah, a great
speaking-
score. The score was terrific.
superb
Yeah.
score.